My science experiment project, I chose to do an experiment about temperature and freezing. Students should already kind of know before doing this project what temperature is, so using their background knowledge, and know that the freezing point of water is 32 degrees Fahrenheit and 0 degrees Celsius. Having that kind of background knowledge will just help them understand kind of what they're doing better. Knowing that water freezes at 32 degrees Fahrenheit and 0 degrees Celsius, so knowing that, we would kind of wonder if the starting temperature of a liquid will affect the time it takes for water to reach a freezing point. This experiment will test that. So you could have students do this in the classroom, but it does require a lot of, you're obviously going to be freezing water, and it's going to require you checking on that kind of often. And so since you're going to be checking on that every 10 minutes, it would kind of be easier for students to do this at home and then come back and report their findings to the class or however you want to do it. So I titled this Temperature and Freezing, and I have some pictures here of kind of how I started it out. So hypothesis or question statement. I want to know if the temperature of water before freezing will affect the amount of time it will take for the water to reach a freezing point. So that's what we're going to be testing, and this is kind of just what we would want to know before starting. What is the effect of temperature on water before freezing on the time it takes to freeze? Our outcome statement, so kind of what we think is going to happen. So we're kind of just predicting what we think is going to happen. I think that the water that was cold at the beginning will freeze at a faster rate than the warm and hot water. I think that the cold water will freeze faster because it has less heat to lose to get to a freezing temperature. So that's just kind of what a student would predict before. And they would use their background knowledge of knowing what degrees water freezes at and all that. Content statement. What is the science concept examined in this experiment? This experiment is about the rate of reduction of heat of 3 different temperatures of water. The key vocabulary for this experiment: temperature, so knowing how hot or cold something is. Students would need to know that, and they should know that kind of at this stage in elementary school. Freezing, a liquid is turned into an ice or another solid is solid as a result of extreme cold. Again, they should kind of already know terms, and they should be familiar with temperature, and I'm sure they, at that point, will have done things with temperature. How does this science concept apply? Knowing these vocabulary terms and the controlled constants will allow one to determine the rate at which heat leaves various temperatures of water until it reaches a freezing temperature. So then you got your variables. So manipulative variable, the one that is going to be changed. So for this experiment is the temperature of the water before freezing. So you would have 3 different ice cube trays, and you would have water, cold water, warm water, and hot water. And it doesn't really matter exactly, the temperature of each, as long as you make note of what the temperature of the cold water is, warm and hot, before starting. Responding variables, the time it takes to be frozen solid. And then constants, the things that are staying the same, or just kind of things, little things like the volume of the water in the ice trays. You want to make sure that all these were filled with the same amount of water.